Hello, hello, everyone. All right, trying to get adjusted here. Wait for you guys to join. It's really, really rainy out today, and you can tell in my hair. It looks really frizzy. Okay, let me adjust the lighting a little bit. The lighting doesn't look the greatest. I feel really high up or something. All right, we're good. All right, I see people joining. Go ahead and leave a comment in the chat if you are on. Let me know you're here. I miss interacting with you guys. I did on the live chat, for the premieres, but I like doing the actual live interacting with you as you guys join. So go ahead and leave comments. We'll kind of wait till everyone starts joining here. Fix my hair. So how's everyone's April been? Now it's May. My May is going to be just as crazy as my April. I got a lot of stuff coming up that I'm doing. And plus, we got to wrap up school. My kids are pretty much wrapping up school for the month. So that'll be, they're wrapping it up this month for the year because I do take summers off. So we'll see if people start leaving chat. Yep, go ahead. Someone just give a thumbs up. Like this video, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, all that good stuff. So wait a minute more until we got more joinings before we go into the topic. I'm going to go ahead and test it, test out the chat and see if it's working. Oh, why is it not showing up? I'm going to have to look at it on my phone. It's not showing up on my end at all. The live chat isn't. That's weird. Must be a glitch on my end. Let me see. Yeah, it's glitching on my end. So I will just keep my phone turned on. Yes. Hi, Karen. Hi, Breaking Baptist. Amber. Shara, Scarlett. Okay. Karen, I thought of you. I got my fun earrings on. See? My fun dangling earrings. It's an inside joke with me and Karen. But anytime I put on some fun earrings, I think of her. So that's for you. Okay, so let's get into the topic. Now we've got some that are lots of people joining. And I don't know. I had a couple things that have happened over the week to kind of just make this whole idea pop into my head about this. But raising kids who actually like you is the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. And obviously, I don't want to ever come across like I'm this parenting expert guru because, where I do have 8 children, we're still in the midst of this right now. But I have raised a couple to adulthood. I really like the people that they are and that they are becoming. And they happen to like me. So this is an area so far where I'm succeeding in raising kids who like me. And, it's something that's near and dear to me because I feel like the generation before us kind of dropped the ball on this. I was talking to one of my friends at church yesterday, and we were just kind of talking about the generation before us. And I don't know if it was almost like this mentality of, I just got to raise, especially if you come from a first generation Christian home, which I did, kind of a mentality of, I got to get them out, down to get married. I want to get them down the aisle pure. And then I'm washing my hands. I'm done. My job is done. But for me, my mindset is completely different. I want relationships with my kids way after they're married. I'm not talking about butting in relationships, but I want to be involved in their life. I want to be involved in my grandkids' lives. And it's something that, for the rest of my life, I want to be involved in my kids' life. And so in order to do that, you have to raise kids that actually like you and want you in their life, right? So this is kind of something that's near and dear to me. My main goal is not as where one of my goals is getting them down the aisle pure. And, my main goal is to raise kids who love the Lord, who want to serve him and stay in church for the rest of their lives, who raise my grandkids in church, and just who love the Lord and have a good relationship with their future spouse. That's my main goal. But I want to be involved in all of my kids' lives and my grandkids' lives as well. So, when they're younger, there is a definite shift as you're raising kids between, the terrible twos, and then when they're 9, 10, then when they're 12, 13, even when they're 14, 15 to adults. I've definitely noticed the shifts that come. And yeah, there's going to be times when your kids just don't like you that day. Maybe it's a bad day. Maybe they needed extra discipline for something that happened. And, obviously there's going to be days like that. I'm talking about overall, the big picture. When you raise an adult, they're going to eventually like you. I was just asking my daughter, Abby, actually, before I did the outline today, I asked my kids, do you guys like me? Just to see what they would say. And they all said they liked me. So that's good. Even down to the younger ones, they said that they liked me. But I've observed whole cycle of kids who've grown up in church. Some kids were raised to be good Christians who speak highly of their parents. And they seem to actually like their parents. They want to be around their parents after they get married. They love spending time with them. They love talking to them. They only have good things to say about them. And then I've observed teens who talk bad about their parents behind their back. Being married to a youth leader for 10 years, there's a lot of things said to us, nothing bad, like, there was never a bad situation as far as child abuse or anything like that was brought to our attention. But we really got to see the teens' hearts. Excuse my cough. I still have this leftover cough and my voice is still not doing very well. But we really got to see the teens' hearts. And sometimes they would tell us stuff that maybe necessarily they wouldn't open up with their parents about. And it was heartbreaking to me because it was obvious that they didn't have a close relationship with their parents, or that they were kind of even embarrassed about their parents, or they didn't like their parents. And obviously we always, recommended healing relationships and getting close to your parents and, all that. But you're going to have the ones that their home life is just direct. So we got to see a whole cycle of kids grow up, and we saw what worked with some kids, what worked with kids, and what didn't work with kids. And I kind of wrote down some of the differences that I think seen, through years and years of watching kids grow up. So let's focus on, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat. If you guys have questions or comments, go ahead and leave it in the chat, and I'll try to read it off if I get to it. So let's start off with child training. So how do you raise kids who like you? Obviously, child training is a huge part of raising children, right? And there is a right way and there's a wrong way. Now, I have been in the IFB world my entire life. So I've heard it all when it comes to child training. As far as like actual guidelines in the Bible, it talks about the rod of correction, the rod of reproof. So obviously, excuse me, corporal punishment plays into that. But the Bible doesn't really give an exact timeline. So a lot of parents that go into this that maybe weren't raised in a house that, that use corporal punishment, they're kind of lost when it comes to this. Let me tell you some sources not to go to. All right. One of my biggest, creepiest people that I try to steer people away from is Michael Pearl. Many of you know Michael Pearl. He and his wife wrote a book, Created to Be His Helpmeet. A lot of good stuff in the book, but there is a lot of bad stuff too that kind of outweighs the good stuff. So I don't ever recommend that book. They also wrote a book called To Train Up a Child. And I believe that I've read all of them. I believe they wrote that one, a couple of others. Now, one of the things that I do not like the most about Michael Pearl is that he condones spanking babies. So let's talk about this. This is a big soapbox of mine. Please don't ever spank your baby. When babies are born, they have no concept of right or wrong. A baby in its first year of life, the basic needs are feeding them, changing them, and loving on them. There have been many, many studies that have been done with babies showing the harmful after effects of not caring, not loving on a baby properly, ignoring the baby. There's been studies where, kids are left alone in their bed for 24 to 25 hours a day. They grow up and they are actually mentally retarded in a lot of ways because of this. So what you need to do when you've got a baby, just love on that baby. They, even when it comes to Hannah with her little fits that she might throw now and then, it's because something hurts or something's not right. She's teething or she has pain. It's not because she's willfully sinning. Kids before a year old are not going to willfully sin. If, she's nursing and she happens to pull my hair, which I think is adorable, but let's say she happens to get her hand in my hair. I don't need to be slapping her hand over and over. And, she's just that's going to frighten her. That's going to scare her. She's not going to understand why is mom hurting me in this way? So, this is a big, big no-no. If you're listening to me and you have no clue, you have your first kid and you don't know where, please don't spank them as a baby. Don't even swat them. Just don't do it. Love on that baby, kiss that baby. And the time for discipline, you will have 20 years ahead of you where you can train your child and instill your virtues into the child. But I have seen a lot of harmful things from spanky babies. So just don't do it. Balancing correction with love. Yes, exactly. 6 million. There is no such thing as spoiling babies. So go ahead and do all the spoiling for sure. Yes, Jessica, I agree. That book is awful. And okay, you know what? I don't know how many of you have read, was it 1984? No, it was another one. What's the other dystopian time era book that's kind of like 1984? I started out reading it and I didn't finish it all. But at the beginning, it was they were showing their way around this big thing. And they came into this room where they had like all these babies. And they were doing this experiment where they were like training them. Like, I can't remember what exactly it was, but they had flowers or something that they had the babies touch. And when the babies touched it, they shocked them or something. It's some dystopian time book. If anyone remembers, put it in the chat. And obviously the babies soon equated the beautiful flower with pain. And so they stopped trying to go for it. Well, you can pretty much teach a child to do anything. You can train a child, you can mold a child, but at what cost? Okay, let's just talk about sitting in church. Let's say that you are determined that your 18-month-old is going to sit through church. You're the boss. They're supposed to be in subjection to you. And by God, you're going to make them sit. So you come armed with your, wooden spoon and no distractions. You're not going to let them color. You're not going to let them look at anything. You're not going to let them play with anything because you're the boss and what you say goes. Okay, so you start spanking your kid on the leg every time they move when they're 18 months old, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. Let's say that you start pulling up to the church and they're equating in their mind all of these spankings with the spoon with going to church. Is that what you want to instill in your kids when it comes to going to church? For me, I don't care about getting my 18-month-old to sit through a church service. What I care about is that my kids love coming to church and they're going to be in church for the rest of their lives. It's not a sprint for me. It's not about getting my kids to sit perfectly at 18 months old. It's about instilling a love in them for church that will last their entire life. So, if you're training your kids to just equate going to church with, just pain and suffering and all this stress, then that's not good. So you can train a child to do it anything you want, but at what cost? So Brave New World. I think that's it. Yes, it's a Brave New World. There's a section right in the beginning where they're talking about how they're training babies. And it reminded me of a lot of parents because, yes, there are times when we need to instill training, especially when it comes to church, but take it slow. You have your goal is to instill a love of church in them for the rest of their life. So don't make it a huge battle. That's just my opinion. If you feel differently, that's fine. But, you need to balance correction with love. It can't just constantly be, just pounding on your kids. And, there has to be love with that correction. Be consistent, but not harsh. Don't be over the top. Have things in your home that have, that always have a consequence. Things like lying, physical violence, cheating, stealing, whatever. But then, show some grace. Maybe your child is hungry and they're crying because their stomach hurts because they're hungry and you were talking, you didn't have a chance, show a little grace. You don't need to go yank him up by the arm and, spank him because he's hungry or something. It's just use discretion. As some parents, I feel like, don't have much, but yes, they absolutely can resent you. 6 million. Do I train littles at home with a spoon to sit through church? I'm working on my 3 and 5-year-olds to sit and listen when I read about 5 to 10 minutes daily. I did do this when my kids were younger. I have slacked off. The more kids I have and the busier my life gets, I have slacked off in this area. Once again, it's definitely, I think, 3 and 5, that's a good age. I feel like for me, I'm very happy if my kids can be sitting through service by the time they're 3. That's kind of my goal. And I think it's good to kind of train your kids to sit for little periods of time while you read to them. It's good to train their attention span. So I would say I did do this when I had 3 really, really little ones. I have not recently, but it's definitely a good idea. But don't do it so much so that they're just dreading anytime a sermon comes on, they're just dreading it because they know it's going to be a war. That's what I would caution you about. You don't want them to grow to hate certain things because they're equating that with pain, So, yeah, it was a brave new world. Being overly critical of your kids. Constantly nitpicking. Nothing is ever good enough. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, growing up, you felt like nothing you could ever do is good enough. Maybe you cleaned the whole house for your mom and you were all excited. And then, you did it as a big surprise. But then when she got home, she pointed out the one thing that you missed, and it's just like deflated. That can deflate kids so fast. And your kids want your approval. My kids want my approval. I can see it. And if you're overly critical, that really just it affects their spirit so badly. So be careful about constantly nitpicking everything they do. If your kid is always on edge about everything, you don't ever give them any words of praise, and there's a difference between over the top flattery they don't deserve and then praise for a job well done. If they've been working on it for a recital, and they do a really good job. Maybe they missed a note or two here. Don't point out the note or two that they missed. Just tell them, you are so brave. You got in front of all of those people and you did such a good job. I'm proud of you. Let them know that you're proud of you. They want your approval and they want your praise. Recognize the good that your kid does. Obviously you're going to need to train them when it comes to certain things, but don't forget to pick out the good too. I've known some parents, it's just, oh man, I feel so sorry for the kid because it's just constantly rah, 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 rah. And even when the kid, I see the kid trying to do good and trying to make their parents proud of them, but it's like nothing is ever good enough. And their parent just has a look of contempt on the face for the kid. And it just, the look on the kid's face, it breaks my heart. So definitely recognize the good that your kids do. Oh, that's a good idea, Jessica. She said, my husband will let the kids watch an animal show or something after watching a part of a sermon at home. They get excited to watch, but if they aren't quiet, they don't get to watch animals. That's nice. Have a little reward at the end for them. I like that. I'll have to watch that 6 million, Karen's video. How to prepare for homeschooling, season 2, episode 12. 6 million with a spoon. That just means that's the spanking implement that they're using. So yes, I do like that too. That is positive reinforcement. That's nice. And then too, they're not just equating, I know I'm going to get disciplined if I mess up when we're watching the sermon, so that's a really good idea. Let's talk about anger. I think anger is one of the things that can raise a lot of very bitter children, resentful children. I'm not just talking about, we all have bad days. We all mess up. We all yell when we shouldn't. I'm talking about constant anger, just constant. Everyone's afraid to be around you. Your husband's afraid to be around you. Your kids are afraid to be around you. Constantly, you're just constantly angry. You're never happy. Here's just a few suggestions when dealing with anger. Cool off before dealing with big problems. Just about the time you think you have this whole child rearing thing figured out, there's going to be a big problem. Your kid's going to mess up big time. Kids have a way of keeping us humble. Even when we think we've got it figured out, they'll find some new way to sin. So, there's going to be big problems that come along, and you're going to need to deal with them calmly and coolly, because that'll help get the point across. My goal when disciplining my kids isn't so much, oh, I need to make them pay for doing this sin. No, I want to get to the heart of the matter. Why did they do that? Why did they sin? Why did they lie to me? Why were they sneaking around doing this? Which my kids don't really sneak around doing much, but I'm just throwing an example out there. Why were they being sneaky? Why were they trying to get away with this in school? So I try to address the heart of the matter. Abby and I were talking about this the other day. She was really sweet, and she told me, she's like, Mom, I want to raise my kids the way you guys have raised us. Oh, I thought that was sweet. And she's like, but what have you done? I'm like, you don't even know, Abby, you live with us. But we were kind of going over some of the things that we've done with them. And she told me, she's like, I know one of the things that you always did when we were younger is when we messed up or something, you were always like thinking of the future. Like you would tell us, you're going to be doing this when you're an adult. And if you do this, then that's going to affect the way that you are when you're an adult. And I did do that because, we did ACE, and the kids, they like to cheat. We call it cheating when they don't score their work right, because they're supposed to be scoring their work on their own. And when they didn't, we would call it cheating. And I remember many times I had a couple that were worse than others. And I would tell them, someday you're going to be the provider for your home, and you have to have a good work ethic. You cannot be a cheater. You cannot be lazy. You have to be a good worker. And, so far I've got the two boys at the top, and Abby, all of them are turning out to be really, really good hard workers. So, maybe try to get it in them, even as they're small. The choices that you're going to make are going to affect the rest of your life. So, and there was a bunch of other stuff that we went over. So yeah, I agree, Jessica. She said, my dad would always wait to discipline us when he wasn't angry, or do it before it gets to the point of anger. So it's going to be, you're not going to get the point across if you're doing it only when you're super, super angry. But yeah, my goal is to get to the heart of the matter. So if your kid is constantly just making you angry, you're so mad at your kid. Oh, you can't even look at your kid. You're so angry. Something is wrong with that. You want to get to the point where you're able to communicate well when it comes to even discipline. You don't want to just be constantly in a fit of anger all the time. So I agree, Amber. The rod of anger will fail. But look for the causes of your anger. Why are you always angry with your kid? Is this something that you need to work on? Or are your expectations too high maybe? Maybe you expect your 5-year-old to act like a 13-year-old, and they're just not to that point yet. Look and see if your expectations are too high for them. Are you expecting your 18-month-old to sit through a service when we have some 40-year-olds that can't even sit through a service without falling asleep? That shame on them, but I'm just saying, don't have expectations that are super high for your kids. That's going to provoke them to anger, and it's going to provoke them to bitterness. And, they're going to grow up, and I can never please my parents. I can never, no matter how hard I tried, I never did enough, and they're not proud of me. That kid's going to probably need therapy. So just warning you now, be careful. Be careful with your anger. Be careful expecting too much. Obviously, you should have expectations for your kids. I have expectations for my kids, especially the older they get. Obviously, I expect Lana, and she's been one of my worst because I started having babies again, so I wasn't able to, and I had to be with the babies in the mother baby room. So Lana gets left out in church a lot by herself, and there are some things we need to work on. But I expect her to sit through a service better than Kelly. I'm just now working on Kelly. And yes, I bring stuff. I bring distractions for her to, do. We're taking it little by little. She almost made it through a service the other day. I was pretty proud of her. And I made sure to tell her that later too. Kelly, good job. You almost made it through a service. So, just look at the reason that you're angry. You shouldn't always be angry all the time. And have you ever heard this phrase, happy home, happy life? I've heard happy wife, happy life, but I like to say happy home, happy life. Okay, so one way to raise kids who like you is have a happy marriage with your husband. Love their dad, respect their dad, talk up their dad. Don't fight all the time. You don't want your home to be a constant war zone. And I'm telling you, for boys especially, one way to really just make your boys not like you as a mom is if you are just horrible to their dad. You're disrespectful to their dad, you are mean to their dad, you're just constantly nitpicking. My husband and I, we have arguments sometimes for the kids, and I always said from the time they were young that it was okay for them to see us argue sometimes, because they always saw that there was a resolution, and they always saw that even if we did argue, neither one of us were going anywhere. It was for life. They needed to see us work through our problems. So yeah, my kids have seen my husband and I have arguments before. Our house is tiny. We go everywhere together in the van. So we're always together. There's obviously going to be arguments at some time. But one thing I've been very careful to do is no name calling, no belittling. You can argue in a good way. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be nasty. I don't like name calling. That is a pet peeve of mine, even on social media. I don't like name calling. I always think that you can come up with, if you should have a better vocabulary to get your point across without name calling. I don't really have respect for people that name call. So that's kind of the line for me when it comes to people in my own life. If there's not, my husband doesn't do this, but I'm talking about like maybe relationship, like acquaintances or things. If it goes down to name calling, I have no problem just kind of cutting that person off. That's kind of the line for me. I don't like that. So I don't do that in my own life. And your kids are going to pick up on that. Don't belittle your husband in front of them. You can argue in a good way. And then two, realize the kids need to see that even though there are arguments sometimes, dad is the boss. And even if mom doesn't agree, they do it dad's way. And that's happened before. My kids have known before where maybe there's something that we don't see eye to eye on, but dad's way goes. So that's good for the kids to see as well. Date your spouse. I believe in dating. I thought it was so funny when I had Mrs. Fritz on and we were talking, and she was like, weekly date night? What's this? What is all this about? And I'm like, I date my spouse. I date him every week. But every situation is different. When I had younger kids, I did not date. We were not able to. A lot of times we would put the kids to bed early, like 7:00, and we would just order from a restaurant in town, and then that would be our date at home while the kids were in bed. So fine, but you can find things to do. You can find little ways around that. Just keep the line of communication open between you two. Once the kids are grown up and gone, you're still going to have each other and that relationship. So that needs to be the most important. But I think one of the biggest things for kids when growing up is that they need a stable home life. They need to see how much you two love each other. They need to see how important you two are to each other. And that's going to make them feel happy and safe and secure. And they're going to grow up and have respect for both of you. So, but yeah, back to the home. Not only do you need to have a good relationship with your husband, but you need to have an actual relationship with your kids. Don't just see your kids. Oh, I don't even know how to put this. Okay, let's talk about pastors' families just for a minute, okay? If you're thinking about going into the ministry, don't look at your kids as just qualifications. Okay, I have to have these good kids because I need to be qualified. Kids are so much more than that. Don't look at them as a burden all the time. Oh, these kids are such a burden. Why are they only a burden? Kids are blessings, and they're supposed to bring a lot of joy and happiness to your life. And I'm constantly laughing at the things that my kids do. I find them hilarious. So, don't think of your kids as like just these qualifiers for going into the ministry, and that's why they have to be good, because if I can't rule my own home, then I can't rule. Is that really that's your goal, is just to have kids that qualify you? It's just, there's messed up thinking with that. So I see this a lot. It's like, and it's hard when you have a lot of kids. It's hard, but you just have to put in the effort. I like to date my kids. That sounds weird, but I like to take them on dates. I like to take them one-on-one by themselves. And I find that we get so much talking done in the van, like on the way to wherever we're going, because we live about 20 minutes from everything. So we have to drive, that's at least 40 minutes of talking time. So I feel like when it's in the van, you're driving and the kid just feels comfortable. They're sitting, next to you or behind you or whatever. And it's just a very comfortable setting for kids to really open up. So, part of raising kids who like you is investing into them, having a relationship with them, finding out what's in their heart, finding out their likes and their dislikes. You get to know that kid more than anyone else in the entire world. So, yes, exactly. I want to know my kids, not just have them, like Sarah said. Yeah, exactly. She said, when I did bus route or babysat, I took time to get to know their likes and dislikes and who they were. I want to know my kids, not just have them. And I feel like sometimes moms of big families, we can just kind of fall into this rut of just get through this day, and I'm guilty of this too. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, especially, they're my super crazy busy days. Teaching, homeschooling, babies, nursing, laundry, all that. So you're like, just get through this day, and you're just muddling through. You're not really living life. You're just getting through it. So, really, if you feel yourself getting into that, just take a break. Sometimes it's fun to just take the kids on a weekend trip somewhere, and I'm talking about that. Build good memories they can look back on with nostalgia, not memories that they need therapy to recover from. That's my goal, raising kids who don't need therapy. And part of that is just, maybe you had a really stressful week and you're like, you know what? We just need some fun time. Let's go hiking for the day. Let's forget about school and let's just go hiking. Let's make a picnic lunch and let's go hiking. Let's, go find a hotel with a water park inside and let's just go have fun on the water. Just do something fun. Have a happy home. You'd be surprised how many homes are not happy and how many homes are literal war zones. Mom and dad fighting, kids fighting, the parents fighting with the kid. Everything is a battle. It's sad. Our home is supposed to be different than the world's home. Our home is supposed to be a shelter in the time of storm. Our home is supposed to be peace in this crazy world. So, different ages and different ages are going to take different approaches to your child training. Most of by the time that my kids hit teenage years, the spankings pretty much cease to exist with them. Most of the time, I've found that if they need a spanking at 13, there's a heart issue somewhere that needs to be dealt with, and you need to get to that heart issue. If they're 13 and they're sneaking around and just flat out disobeying you, there's a problem. If they're 13 and they're, lying to you, cheating, stealing, whatever, there's a huge problem, and that heart problem needs to be dealt with. And it's going to take more than a spanking to fix that. I believe spankings are good when they're younger at, establishing the groundwork, and especially when you're trying to train them. Okay, if they can die because they don't obey you, they need to learn to obey you. They need to learn to stop when you say stop, and they'll run out in the street and get hit by the truck. That's when A spanking needs to be implemented if they're not listening to you. But as they get older, at 13, you're not yelling at them to don't cross the street. There's a truck coming. There's going to be, by then they should know how to listen. So if you're still having problems at that age, there's something that is missing. How do you find out what the heart issue is? Is it a matter of conversation or observation? I think both. Moms are really good about this. Moms tend to pick up on things a lot faster than dads. Dads tend to focus more on the outward behavior and, well, if he's listening to me, everything's fine. Where moms can tell. Moms can tell if something's bothering their child. Moms can tell if there's something going on in their heart. Maybe something's not quite right. So yes, it's a lot of conversation. Teenagers, there's a lot of talking that goes on with teenagers. I have found there's a lot of physical work that goes into raising tiny kids, bathing them, brushing their teeth, changing their diapers, spanking them. Teenagers, there's a lot of mental work. You have to really, really pour a lot of time, and sometimes more time. Sometimes it's an hour-long, 2-hour-long conversation with a teenager. But if you just brush them aside, and I don't have time for this, I got to deal with this, you really don't take, especially if they're really reaching out to you and they're crying out for help, you're going to miss a great opportunity. And there's been so many times in my life, even with my teenagers, I have to put everything on hold for an hour or two, and I have to address what's going on because there is an issue that needs correcting. And that takes a lot of talking. At least in my own life with my kids, I've had to do that. So remember, when they're little, it's exhausting physically. When they're older, sometimes it's exhausting mentally. And they're going to push it. They want to know, why do we do this? Why do you do this? They're not going to take because I said so. I mean, that's what, we kind of heard growing up, right? But I don't want to be that way with my kids. I want them to know why we do the things that we do, because it's a heart thing for me. I want to get it in their heart so that they'll continue it as they grow older. So yes, conversation and observation. And you need to pour a lot of time into those teenagers when it comes to that. And it's really tough. I mean, I've got a baby. This is hard work. I've got all these teenagers. Sometimes I'm just exhausted and I want to go to sleep, but someone's having a problem that I need to address. So I got to stay up another hour or two dealing with that while the little ones are sleeping. See, so it's tough, moms. It's tough, but it'll be worth it if they know that you care and they know that you're willing to drop everything and talk to them. That's going to play a huge part in their relationship with you. So, have a peaceful home, not a war zone. Home shouldn't be a place you're tiptoeing around on eggshells. You don't want to be unapproachable. And there's times I failed with this, but I try to get better all the time. So, make your own traditions as a family. Have fun as a family. Don't compare your kids to other kids. Your kids are unique. God gave them to you. God didn't give them to Sally and Joe. And God didn't give Sally and Joe's kids to you to raise. So you focus on your own kids. Don't compare them to other kids. Do what's right for your own family. There's going to be some things that you don't allow in your family that other people are, and that's fine. One of the things for our family growing up is when my kids are like, well, so-and-so does this. Okay, so that's their family, not our family. And I've told them before, McMurtry family does this. It doesn't matter if someone else doesn't do it, but we do this. So, establish that there are things that you are going to do. And it's fine if your family alone is the only one doing it. Not a big deal. Not everyone needs to. Protect your kids. This is a way to raise kids that like you. You raise them, not someone else. Protect their mind and heart as well, not just physically. You don't want them just to get down the aisle pure physically. You want to them get down the aisle pure mentally and pure emotionally, especially your girls. This is going to be a big part up to dad to protect them. But there is so much out there that they can get involved in, especially online. So you set the ground rule when it comes to phones, but more so, even if they don't have a phone till they're 20 years old, if the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, okay? If they want to find out something that they know is wrong, they will find a way to find it. Doesn't matter if they don't have a phone. Doesn't matter if you turn the Wi-Fi off at night. And that once again goes to a heart issue from the time that they're small. Instill in them, we don't look at certain things. We don't, dwell on certain things. We want to keep our mind pure. We want to love the Lord, and God can see if we're looking at this stuff. Doesn't matter if mom doesn't catch you, God can see. So start telling them that from the time that they're young. You don't want to raise a pervert. Like, let's, just touch on the elephant in the room. Josh Duggar this week was just arrested for some horrible, horrible charges. And I mean, obviously something happened in his life a long time ago, whether it was he was abused as a kid, whether it was he never got saved and he just got involved in stuff on the internet and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Something happened and he was not protected. Even though he married pure, he was not protected. His mind was not protected. So, be really, really careful when it comes to your kids and the stuff that they're looking at, just instill that in them from the time that they're small. And then too, I feel bad for Michelle. I mean, can you imagine as a mom, your son being arrested for this? Oh, I can't even imagine. And, oh man, what went wrong? I have no idea. I wasn't a member of their home, so I don't know. I don't know if something happened when he was small, but be vigilant. Maybe he was abused when he was younger, and that's when they started cracking down and got really super strict about all the rules and stuff. So, just keep your kids with you. I know it's horribly heartbreaking. Shelter your kids, but don't stifle them. Okay, so what does that mean? Don't be a helicopter parent constantly. You want to protect your kids from harm, but they're still going to have to get out there and live their life at the end of the day. So when it comes to my boys, they both had a job. When they were about 13 or 14, they started having a job, and people were like, well, aren't you nervous? They're going to be around boys that maybe aren't using good language. I said, yeah, I was a little nervous, but I told them they need to learn to stand on their own 2 feet, because one of these days they're going to have to work in the world. And, they did. They learned that they didn't have to take part in that filthy conversation. They learned to guard their mouth. They learned to just walk away if things got really, really bad. So they did learn. What about when it comes to interacting with your kids? I'm trying to hurry because I can hear my baby crying. I think she's hungry. She's been a little spitfire lately. This week, I don't know what it is. We all got sick and she hasn't felt very well either, and that might be part of it. But she's been a little spitfire. So one thing I've noticed when it comes to raising kids in front of people, be careful criticizing your kids in front of other people. Handle their heart very carefully, especially if it comes to something that they've confided in you about. You don't want to go tell the whole world. And boys especially, they need respect as they get older. And obviously this is a line that's tough for boys because mom is mom and they still always need to respect mom too. But I try to treat my older 2 boys in a way like the men. I try to treat them like men because they are men now. And I don't need to be just in front of people, Tommy, what is wrong with you? Jason, what is wrong with you? Going off at them in front of people. That's going to reduce them to being about that tall. So I have to be careful. It doesn't matter if as your boys get older, they need respect. It's just something in a man. He needs respect, even if that's just from his mom. So if they confide in you, don't destroy that trust. My baby is almost 6 months. She'll be 6 months next week. So I don't know if she's teething, but like I said, she was just sick. She's been a pistol these last couple of days. I'm a little exhausted. So keep an open line of communication. So if something is happening, that they can approach you. And then also from the time our kids were small, we trained them as far as what was okay and what was not okay. It's not okay for an adult to ever have you alone. It's not okay for this. It's not okay for this. If this ever happens, you come tell mom. If this ever happens, you scream, you run away, you come tell mom. So we've kind of trained our kids from the time that they were little, things to watch for. So that's just part of protecting them. Don't be over the top with discipline in public places. It should be private. You don't need to prove to anyone that you discipline. You don't need to prove to anyone that you're this great parent, that I'm this hardcore disciplinarian, do it in private. You don't need to be following around your kid at church just waiting for him to mess up so you can beat him in front of everyone. That's just horrible thing to do to your kid. Keep your calm. Deal swiftly and quietly. It doesn't need to be a show. Even with Kelly, when I have to discipline her here at church, I try to go off in a room and do it. I don't need, even though she's tiny. I mean, there's been times when I've had to just grab her and swat her, Not really a big deal. She's 2.5. So, but you don't need to put on a big show about it. And then one of the ways that you can raise kids that like you, this is one of the most important, is like your kids. If you want your kids to like you, like your kids, like I said before, everything is attainable, but at what cost? You can have perfect zombie little kids that obey your every command, and you've broken their spirit, and they never sass you, and they never talk back, and they always fall in line like they're supposed to. But at what cost did that come to you? Do they shudder when they see you coming because they're afraid of you? Because they know that they're going, and there's a healthy fear and there's an unhealthy fear. Okay, don't get me wrong. But do they shudder? Do they wince every time you go to grab them because they know they're in trouble again? You can train your kids to be perfect little angels in church, but at what cost are they going to grow up dreading and hating church? Let your baby be a baby. I can't stress that enough. Let your baby be a baby. Every kid is different and might need different approaches. I've had to approach things a lot differently with Kelly than my others because she is a very, very strong-willed child. And the things that worked on some of my other kids that were maybe a little more pliable and moldable do not work with her. So I've definitely had to change some things when it comes to her. And your kids can tell if you like them or not. Kids aren't stupid. Kids can tell if you're constantly angry at them and constantly nitpicking and constantly finding fault. They're not going to think that you like them very much. And, it's not hard for kids to tell. Don't be a hypocrite. That's another big one. If you want to raise kids that hate you, be a hypocrite. They see everything. Be who you are wherever you are. Be who you are at church. Be who you are at home. Be who you are at Walmart. Don't change where you are don't change who you are based on where you are. Kids know if you're faking it. And if it's real to you, it's going to be real to them. That was another thing that Abby had told me too when we were talking about things that we did. She said she always knew that like what we talked about was real to us. I'm not just here blowing steam. I'm not just like making up the stuff that I think would be good to do, but I don't do it. She could tell that what we talk about, it's real to us. Relationship with Christ is real to us. Following the commandments is real to us. Loving the Lord is real to us. So she could see that at home, at church, everywhere. So can I explain further how to talk to them about the dangers of being alone? Yes. So we would play this little game. After a bathroom or getting dressed or something, I would point to different areas. Can someone touch you here? And they would say, yes. Can someone touch you here? Yes. Can someone touch you here? Yes. And then we would point to different areas and say, now the private areas, can someone touch you here? No. And I would say, no, don't ever, ever, ever let someone, if someone does, you scream, you run away, you come tell mommy. And then I've always told them, if an adult ever tries to get you alone, refuse. Do not. And then you come tell me right away. So you come tell me if someone's trying to get you into a room and shut the door. You don't ever need, even with their friends, when they have their friends over to play, we don't allow closed doors, especially if it's like girls and boys playing together. I make sure the doors stay open, the doors stay open. So I've just, from the time they're little, I've kind of put that into their head. So It's just a way to safeguard them and really get them aware. So hopefully that will help a little. But my number one tip for raising kids that like you are these next few points. And that is enjoy your life, like your kids. You know, if you're miserable, your kids are probably going to be miserable too. If you don't have friends, your kids aren't going to have friends either for the most part. They're going to see you having friendships and kind of going through that is going to exhibit to them how friendships work, you know, and how you can have friends. Plus, if you don't have friends, you're probably not going out and doing things with them, or you're not going to church, and then your kids aren't making friends through church. So that's a big thing. If you fail to show grace to other people, you know, or even if you fail to show grace to your kids, why would your kids show grace with you? We're going to mess up. I mess up on the daily when it comes to rearing my kids. But fortunately, kids have it in them to have grace for their parents. And I feel like most parents could use a little grace on their end. I feel like parents expect too much out of their kids a lot of times, and we could stand to show some grace to our kids. So if you want your kids to show grace to you when you mess up, make sure that you extend that same grace to them. If no one's good enough in your life, you're not going to be good enough for your kids. They're going to grow up with a very, very critical attitude. If you're constantly nitpicking everyone at church, oh, did you see so-and-so? Did you see what they did? Did you see what they did? Your kids are going to get that attitude, and they're going to grow up. And then someday you're probably, mom and dad, you know, can you believe what they did? You're not going to be good enough. So you got to remember, your kids are watching everything that you do. If you're patient and long-suffering with people, your kids are going to learn that. Your kids are going to learn how to work with people. Your kids are going to learn that, okay, we all have faults. Who cares? And then you have faults as parents, so they're going to show you grace and show you patience and show you long-suffering, you know, when you mess up. So what you love, your kids are going to love. And what you hate, your kids are going to hate. So they tend to pick up on that. If you love people, your kids are going to have a love for people. And then that in turn is benefiting you, because then they're going to love you. If you love God, your kids are going to pick up on that. And chances are they're going to love the Lord. If you, as a father, you love liquor, chances are your kids are going to love liquor, and they're going to want to experiment earlier and earlier, growing up, seeing you drink it. But we're going into, my husband is second generation Christian. We're raising third generation Christians. And one thing that we have both tried to do is instill a hatred for alcohol and a hatred for drugs and different things like that. And so far, our kids have expressed their hatred for it as well. And they've seen it. They've seen it out soul winning. They've seen the beer bottles everywhere, the horrible pigsty of a house. They've seen what, that person is spending their money on, and they don't want anything to do with that. They've worked with guys who are talking about, I can't wait to go out and get wasted. And they've seen how they spend their whole week, and they basically work and then they get wasted on the weekend. That's their whole life. And they've talked about how stupid that is. And can you imagine like blowing all this money just to go get drunk? And, they've seen that example. So you've got to, all these things I listed out about having grace and compassion. I've seen a lot of parents that were harsh with everyone. Just no one was good enough. No one in the church was good enough. No one was as perfect as them. No one was as holy as them. And then they raise these kids that grow up that have that same mentality, and then mom and dad aren't good enough for them. Mom and dad don't measure up. So they want nothing to do with mom and dad after they get out of the house. So my goal, like I said, is to raise kids who love the Lord, who want to serve him, who stay in church the rest of their life, who really firmly believe in all of the stuff that we've tried teaching them with their heart, and that like me, that want to be around me. I want to raise kids that I have a relationship with, that I know. And most of my kids, I feel like I don't really have to worry about them, at least the older ones so far, like going around griping about me. Mom does this, mom does that, Thankfully, I don't have, and by the grace of God, I'm very careful, even with this Josh Duggar thing and Michelle. I try to be very careful with casting stones because, but what manner you judge, that shall you be judged. And that's talking about if I'm like, well, it probably happened because Michelle was this way. If I fail in a certain area, I don't want that happening to my kid. But for the grace of God, there go I. So I'm very, very careful when it comes to stuff like that. But I watch so that I can make good judgments when it comes to my own family. So maybe something did happen when he was younger that kind of made something switch in his brain to cause him to go crazy like this. And so, that's why we as parents need to be vigilant and watch our kids and guard their hearts and guard their purity and guard their mind and just all this stuff. But, be careful acting like you're the guru of child raising when you've got 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. There's a lot more parenting ahead of you. You're going to be thrown everything. You're going to have to learn to deal with situations you never thought that you would have to deal with. And God will give you wisdom as you go through it. So, listen to preaching, raise your children, let your kids see it, have grace for other people. Remember, we are all on this journey together of becoming more like Christ, and no one has arrived. And we will always live with the sinful flesh until we are raptured. So just remember, none of us have arrived, and give each other some grace and, have your kids in a good church, get them around good, godly people, have fun with your kids, love your kids. And, you might just raise kids that like you as they get older. So I happen to love my kids. I like my kids. I want to be around for the long haul in their lives. So that's my goal and my desire. So hopefully that helped. Yeah. Sorry, I missed a lot of chat. It was on my phone. It didn't come up on my thing tonight. Something was wrong with it. So if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Like it. I noticed we have 13 thumbs up and over 30 people watching. So let's get some more likes. It helps the algorithm. And every day I'm going up in subscribers. So I'm just hoping that this advice can help someone. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. But God has helped me get this far, and he's going to help me raise the rest of them too. So, and my goal is just that, if I can raise functioning adults that love the Lord and will stick with it the rest of their lives. And if my advice can help any of you, good. I'm glad. But you guys have a lot of good advice too. So leave the comments down below if you have any advice. And I am going to sign off now. Next week might be another premiere because my husband and I are going on our 20th wedding anniversary trip to Philadelphia. So we are going to be going to Philly. We're going to be going to Lancaster one of those days to Sights and Sounds and seeing Esther. I'm so excited. But I've never been. I've been to a lot of places. I've been to like 40 states or something. I've never been to Philadelphia, so I want to go see Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell and all that good stuff. So it's going to be fun. So we're going to be there next week. So I might do another premiere next Monday night because I'm going to be in Philly doing stuff with the husband. So pray for us. We'll have a safe trip. And the week after, I will be back, though, with a live. So tell me what you want to see. Tell me what you want to hear about. Give me the topics. And we'll go from there. Okay? I hope you guys have a great week. Bye.